All right, just waiting for everybody to jump on here. I'm checking all of my feeds. I'm making sure everything's good. What do you mean you're offline? I'm not offline. Make sure everything's streaming okay. Bear with me, everyone, and then we're going to get started. I don't need the fucking sound going off on this the entire time. I just turned the sound completely down. All right, so we're live on everything. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Relief Valve Podcast. This is I usually do one as a Sunday Shitbag Roundup, but this is the Monday after Sunday Shitbag Roundup. I wasn't able to get to it last night. I wanted to start here with and I'm not going to be able to get into it too much, unfortunately. We're live we're TikTok Live, YouTube, and Rumble, but for saying the disgusting things that Elmo has said from Sesame Street. It was his real verified account. Some of the disgusting things he said. Yes, over the weekend. I ended up having my video muted for. So I'm gonna have to show you some of it. And hopefully you can do it now. It's we do not condone or accept anything Elmo had to say on his account, and for TikTok, I don't know if this is going to work because I don't know if it's the writing is kind of hard to see, but we don't condone any of this talk or behavior from Elmo. It is an official account, and again, it looks like his account was hacked over the weekend, but he ended up saying Elmo says all Jews. I'm going to find a better one of this. So, one person here responds to this and says, giving away some soul and then there's a link. And then Linda says, muting at Elmo because this is hacked. Elmo responds, fuck you and your tranny daughter and N-word here. Okay? That's Elmo's response to this person who says that they're being muted. In another response here from Elmo, he says, I want to get a full one here. Elmo says all Jews should fuck the Jews. Donald Trump is Netanyahu's puppet because he's in the Epstein files. Jews controlled the world and need to be X'd. Okay, and then he says, Elmo continues to say, release the files at real Donald Trump child fucker. And then he says, X all the Jews. Hopefully, TikTok doesn't take this down. But this was some of the stuff from Elmo over the weekend. And Elmo's just checking in to see how everybody's doing. Elmo says all the Jews should blah, blah, blah. Here, somebody is going through the feed here and actually showing all this. Now, my when I put this up, it got muted on TikTok. So the account was hacked. Either a disgruntled employee or the account was hacked, but just deplorable and awful things from Elmo. And we don't condone any of Elmo's words here. But, there's free speech, and if this is how Elmo feels, he does have the right to say that. But I thought that was kind of a funny thing to start with. Okay, so aside from the disgusting antics of Elmo, we're going to get into what is going on here with the Epstein files and how crazy everything is turning into. MAGA, MAGA is kind of split down the middle a little bit and is fighting each other. A lot of larger content creators are either going one way or the other. I've done something similar. I've gone one particular way with it. So now we've got Bongino, allegedly from some sources like Benny Johnson and others, claiming that he's going to quit if Pam Bondi doesn't quit. Now, Trump praises Bongino after he reports he might quit as Epstein files fallout continues, and this is a timeline of events. So President Donald Trump said Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino was a good guy and in good shape in his role at the Bureau, contradicting multiple reports that said he was planning to resign over the Justice Department's handling of the release of the so-called Epstein files, a move that has caused a major rift among his base as many blast the administration for not delivering on lofty expectations for the bombshell new details. So we've got a little bit of a timeline here. February 27th. At a press event featuring MAGA influencers and podcasters, Bondi handed out the binders full of what her office called the declassified Epstein records, but also admitted most of them had been previously leaked but never released in a formal capacity. And backlash quickly began growing as observers realized the files contained no more new names or revelations. You remember seeing Jack Sobiak, D.C. Drano, and others walking out with the binders, holding them up after they had this creators, influencers meeting at the White House. And this was supposed to be the phase one, right? And this was supposed to play to something larger going on about information we were going to get to. So I'll get back to that and let's move on. February 28th, shortly after the Epstein Files Phase 1 event, Bondi said the FBI failed to disclose thousands of pages of documents related to the investigation and indictment of Epstein and asked FBI Director Kash Patel to deliver the remaining records, documents, audio and video recordings, and materials related to Jeffrey Epstein and his clients, regardless of how such information was obtained. You remember her saying there's a truckload of documentation that's supposed to be delivered to her by the southern district of New York, right? This FBI office here in the southern district of New York. That's where they fired the head of that office. And then after getting rid of him, they were going to get all the documents and we were going to get all the information we needed. That didn't happen either. That was bullshit. So March 14th, Pam Bondi gave an interview to Fox News answering a question about so-called Epstein client list by saying it was sitting on my desk right now. Bondi and the White House have since claimed the Attorney General was referring to the entire tranche of documents related to the Epstein prosecution. That's not what she said. When they said, do you have the client list and all of that on your desk? She said, yes, everything's on my desk. It's waiting to be reviewed. That suggests it's not only regular old files of whatever it is, but also clients that were associating with him, or associates, really, right? There's been this discussion between both sides about, it's almost like the lawyer argument. Well, I want to see a client list. Well, I'm sorry, there is no client list. Well, what about associates? Well, then you have to say associates, because there isn't a client list, but there is people he interacted with. So you have to be specific when you ask for this. This has been another kind of bullshit thing that's been going around. So, June 5th, the feud between Trump and former ally Elon Musk heats up as a billionaire Tesla chief and former leader of the Department of Government Efficiency accused the president of being implicated in the Epstein files. July 7th, the Justice Department quietly releases a memo determining Epstein committed suicide in his jail on August 19th. Now, we're seeing a lot more video about that, and even the video was edited. What somebody's saying, I'm going to play one of Asmund Gold's videos soon after this, that they ended up using an AI program or running it through a program in order to clean up the video and compress it to the way they needed it to be because they have like old, outdated equipment allegedly. And this is one of the reasons that there's like, one, there seems to be a skip, and two, there appears to be time missing. They tried to say it's when the system cycles over at the midnight hour or something like that, but there's a lot of debate going on with that, and the video just doesn't look correct. So the memo also contains, here it is, a link to about 11 hours of footage of Epstein in his cell released as proof of his suicide, which quickly faced more scrutiny after viewers realized about a minute of footage was missing. The memo sparked widespread backlash among Trump's base as top conservative commenters called for Bondi to resign or be fired, and right-wing commentator Laura Loomer claimed Patel and FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino are livid with Bondi over the memo and her lack of transparency regarding the Epstein files. July 8th, Trump begins lashing out at reporters who continue to press Bondi on the release, calling one reporter's question about the disgraced financier a desecration, while other tragedies, such as the deadly flooding in the Texas Hill Country, were ongoing. This is the one that really made my blood boil. When Trump turns around and says, why are we still talking about this? Why is it still an issue? There are more important things going on. I mean, you're the guy who said, We need to get all this information out there and set up your, what was he talking about when he said we're going to get information? He said, I'm going to get you the JFK files. He said, I'm going to get you the Martin Luther King files. He said he's going to expose the Epstein files, right? He's talking about all this stuff that he's going to drain the swamp, and he's going to share all this information with the American people. Then it goes from the phase 1 binders to the phase 2, there's not really anything here, to the phase 3, why don't you just shut up and mind your own business? I mean, it absolutely drove me nuts. Thank you, Moji, for that. It absolutely drove me nuts when he said that. I'm going to continue on here. July 11th. Multiple outlets reported Bongino, a former podcaster and MAGA influencer, before his appointment to Deputy FBI Director, might resign over how the Epstein release was handled, with CNN reporting he clashed with Bondi. On the 12th, July 12th, the next day, Patel wrote on X, the conspiracy theories just aren't true, after he has said in multiple interviews the conspiracy theories are true. Kash Patel has said with Benny Johnson and many others, the FBI has a black book with all people's names in it. They know who these people are who are involved, and that the Republicans need to have the balls to step up and demand that this information is released. Now this fucking guy is turning around and saying the conspiracy theories aren't true. I mean, am I taking crazy pills, or are they? So, criticism just aren't true, never have been, and vowed his commitment to remaining in the Trump administration, writing, "It's an honor to serve the President of the United States, real Donald Trump, and I'll continue to do so for as long as he calls on me." July 12th, Trump doubles down on the criticism of MAGA influencers and reporters, questioning the lack of answers from the administration Epstein probe, praising Bondi for doing a fantastic job, and pushing the Justice Department to investigate controversies he has harped on for years, the Hunter Biden laptop, Democratic campaign fundraising site ActBlue, and questioning the results of the 2020 presidential election. I have no problem with any of those as well. I want to know the answers on those as well. So, Patel's post Saturday came amid multiple reports that Patel and Bongino had butted heads, with Bondi over the DOJ's memo Monday saying the agency will not release further documents on Epstein, which also said an Epstein client list does not exist, and it asserted that the financier died by suicide in 2019, CNN reports. Patel was involved in a meeting in this week with Bongino and Bondi over the major clash between the FBI and DOJ over how to handle the Epstein documents. It's unclear whether Patel's reference to conspiracy theories in his post Saturday referred to the allegations of infighting between the DOJ and FBI, or to the conspiracy theories regarding Epstein, which Patel repeatedly pushed himself before joining the FBI. Now Patel's turning around and also saying, there's nothing to see here and don't believe the conspiracy theories that he himself put out there. Trump is doing the same thing now by coming out and saying, why are we still talking about this? I'm so sick and tired of hearing about Epstein. Why can't we let this go, and why can't we move on to more important things? And it really made me feel like I was taking crazy pills when he came out with this, because him and his team were pushing getting all of this information out and informing the American people. Now we're, thank you, Moji, I appreciate the gift, thank you very much. Now we're crazy conspiracy theorists who need to shut the fuck up about it. This is absolutely, I want to find, I have another thing set up with Asmongold. I want to set up another clip because CoffeeZilla has really been doing a deep dive on this whole thing coming. I might not be able to play the whole thing for you, but I want to do, and even Benny himself has played this clip when he was interviewing Kash Patel. And specifically, all right, bear with me one second here. I don't know how I'm going to find this exact. I want to find this exact clip.
We've decided we will no longer be cooperating with any further FBI requests.
Yeah. Hey, it's Brian Shepard.
Well, I told Shepard we're done working with him as of now.
Right, so good to hear from you. Listen,
all right, hold on a second here. I think he plays it right here. Let's get some of this.
Cash, what's up, man? How you doing? Are the intel agencies finally turning on Joe?
This was a year ago.
The intel, great to be with you, Benny. The intel agencies, it's not that they're turning on Joe. They've had the intelligence. It's that they got the order from the top, the head government gangsters, to say, we cannot stay in power if Joe Biden remains in power. And so what we have to do is what we did during Russiagate and Jan 6th and Ukraine impeachment 1 and 2, leak insensitive information to your partners in the media, CNN, the Washington Post, and the New York Times, and start the narrative that Joe Biden must go because of these misgivings that him and Hunter have created. They won't actually indict him in the court of public opinion, but they'll come up to the 1-yard line. And that's the operation. And now they're doing it.
I couldn't believe this Washington Post article. We're going to put it up on screen. But, like, the Washington Post article, here's all these recordings from 10 years ago of your brother. I mean, whoa, man. Like, those are dirty. That's dirty tactic. Here's the Hunter Biden tax charges filing. Here are all these texts with your ex.
Government con job. Nobody lost that binder. The Russians and the Iranians didn't break into the Central Intelligence Agency, then break into a skiff, then break into a safe, and then secretly escape with the materials so they could blame Donald Trump for missing documents. The CIA knows exactly where that binder is. So does the Department of Justice. But their grundoons in the media are like, how do we turn this on Donald Trump? Because it actually exonerates Donald Trump. So what do? We make it look as if Donald Trump stole the binder, which is completely preposterous. They actually
this is the Russian election interference, not the one I'm looking for. Bear with me once.
Protecting the greatest pederast,
here we go.
The largest scale pederast in human history.
Simple, because of who's on that list. You don't think that Bill Gates is lobbying Congress night and day to prevent the disclosure?
Look at this. Kash Patel states, the government FBI has Jeffrey Epstein's little black book. Trump should release it on day one, and the rest of the footage of the D.C. pipe bomber. Here he is 1 year ago, before he's voted into office to be head of the FBI. Here he is talking about it, saying they have all the information and everything you're looking for.
Closure of that list. And why is it that the Senate, and good for Senator Blackburn to try to get it out, but then Dick Durbin comes over the top and says, no, we're not going to release the names. I don't care about the list itself, but if you release the names, right? What the hell are the House Republicans doing? They have the majority. You can't get the list? You're going to accept Dick Durbin's word, or whoever that guy is, as to who is on that list and who isn't, and that it can and can't be released? Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are. We have an election coming up, and we need...
Listen to that. Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are. You know what Kash Patel is saying right now, after all of this controversy? Don't believe the conspiracy theories. Don't believe your lying eyes and ears. This whole thing is a nothing burger, and we need to move on. This is why I have to keep asking myself, is someone putting crazy pills in my morning coffee or my lunch or something, and I don't fucking realize it? What the fuck is happening here? If you really want to hide all of this, the smartest thing to do is shut the fuck up about it right from the get-go. Don't tell the American people, we're going to release all this. You're going to get all the information. You're going to find out about all the high-profile names of these people that are involved in disgusting acts. We're going to release all of this information. And then you vote them in, and it wasn't just on this issue, to be fair. We didn't vote them in to get information on JFK, Epstein, and Martin Luther King, and etc. There were a whole host of reasons that we voted Trump and these particular people into office, because we didn't vote them into office, but we knew who he was going to bring in, right? We knew they were going to bring in Kash Patel. We knew they were likely going to pull on Dan Bongino. We knew Pam Bondi was going. These are the people he was going to pull on when he got into office. So you voted for him, and then you voted for the, for the troops, the people he was going to be. You were okay with that action happening. All of these people, as this idiot is stating in his own words right now, are saying, The FBI has all of the decision you need. Yeah, the rich are all in bed together. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And unfortunately, this is what appears to be the case, because give me the reasoning on, realistically, why you need to hide this. What is it? You know, when people said, well, the reason it's not going to come out is because Trump is on the list. We know that he hung out with Epstein. We know that he's flown with him. There's multiple pictures of them, and that now he was a rich guy. Epstein was a rich guy. They were all interacting together at all of these high-level elite social functions, right? Now, two things can be true at once. One, there can be people that Epstein hung out with that were not pedophiles. They were just part of that circle of elites. And then the other part of it is that there are people that worked with him and interacted with him for his access of trafficking young boys and girls. So you have to ask yourself, and I hate having to do this, and I never thought that I would, but is there any truth to the fact that they won't release the list because Trump is one of the names on it? Now, maybe he had absolutely nothing to do whatsoever with the pedophile ring and all of that, but he was hanging out with the guy, and it looks bad for him that he hung out with him as much as he did, right? I don't know. But when you go from, hey, I'm going to give you all the information that you need to know, to, I'm sick and tired of talking about this, and would you please shut the fuck up? There's a huge gap in the middle of all of that that is a serious problem. And you can't just ignore it. So now you've got these fake conservatives on one side, like Cat Turd and these other idiots, that are like NPCs, non-playable characters, so they just follow along with whatever excuse they're given or whatever the situation is. And they say, well, you know what, who gives a shit? Let's just move on to the next thing. Well, we all give a shit. As a matter of fact, I think this might be something that bridges the gap in some places between the right and the left. Human beings want an answer on what all of this is. We've been told for years there are pedophiles, and we've seen it in some cases with information being exposed. There are pedophiles in the upper echelons of Hollywood. There are pedophiles in the upper echelons of the music industry. There's pedophiles in the upper echelons of governments, not just here, but around the world. These people are voting on the things that matter to us. They are moving their money and supporting things that matter to us and influence our lives. These countries and these leaders of these countries are acting in manners that affect all of our lives. And it's bad enough that they might be shitbags, but on top of that, they are pedophiles that are potentially pedophiles that are harming children. So yes, that's the reason this information is so important. I can't believe some people are out there right now and they're saying on X, they're saying, the Epstein thing is over, stop talking about it, there's more important things to move on to. Why are we beating this particular dead horse? Because they've made it a larger issue by telling us they were going to release all the information, then turning around and gaslighting us and lying directly to our faces. I mean, here he is.
We need to adjudicate this matter at the polls. God knows the FBI and DOJ aren't going to do anything, but how are you going to reward the FBI with a new...
God knows that the FBI and the DOJ aren't doing anything, and now you're in charge, and you are not doing anything. You pretended you went through the files. You pretended that you got all of the information. Now there's nothing to see here?
New headquarters building after their illegal surveillance on Donald Trump continues with a reauthorization of FISA, and we can't even get basic documents out. This is why America hates Congress. And this is why I'm tired of the Republican majority saying they're going to get the job done and failing.
So are you, like, in closing here, I want to just be very clear. Republicans could get Epstein's list out now? Like, how would that process work?
Simple. One subpoena to the FBI. Give me the list. Oh, you don't want to give me the list and you're going to break the law and commit contempt of Congress? We're going to take your money. We're going to take Chris Wray's private jet. Taxpayer-funded G5 rides across the country to his Appalachian State vacation home, down to Georgia, and all over the rest of the place. That guy doesn't need a G5 government-funded jet. And the second you take that money, you get Epstein's list.
here's the problem, Cash, is that they shut down the Lolita Express. So how are these guys going to fly on a private jet anymore? I mean, it's really a quandary, my friend.
Man, I love it.
Why are they protecting the pedophile? Really, the answer to that question is the real answer to everything. Why are they protecting the pedophiles? Find the answer to that one. I think you'll, well, you won't like the result, but at least it'll be true.
So there it is. You don't have to take my word for it, right? Let these people dig their own hole. There's Kash Patel, before he came to game the director of the FBI, stating the FBI has all the information you need. They have access to the little black book. Pam Bondi is saying the exact same thing. Then there's a complete 180. They're facing the other direction, and then saying there's nothing to see here. There is no information. There is no Epstein list. We don't have a client list or an associate list. And then they flip on it again and they go, well, there is a list of associates, but the problem is, by saying who they are, we can also expose innocent people too, that were just friends of Epstein and weren't actually involved in the child trafficking. And that's the problem. We don't want to hurt the innocent people that were part of this. Listen, first of all, release everybody's name and leave it to the court of public opinion. Second, how about narrowing it all down to the people that are maybe on video? I mean, he bugged and videoed up every one of his rooms. So an adult walks into a room with a child in it. Now explain to me while you're on Epstein Island in that room with a child in the room. Now tell me you've got a defamation lawsuit. That's bullshit. The only thing you have to do is release the video and remove the child. Cut that part out. Even give a still video that just shows the picture of the adult, no child. And identify the adult that's in the video in the still picture. You could do that. Instead, they've decided there's nothing to see here and there's nothing to release. And this is disgusting. And the people go on. I have been an absolute Trump supporter for all 3 times that he ran. But I'm not an NPC. I don't blindly follow. This is important. It matters. And they've turned around, let us down, and said there's nothing to see here, and insulted all of our intelligence and all of the emotional effort we have been putting in. And crying out loud to the heavens type of thing in order to say, get us this information and expose these people. Now these guys that we thought were going to... Kash Patel was supposed to go into the FBI, turn it upside down on its head. And we were supposed to get everything that we need. And Dan Bongino going in there was supposed to be the powerhouse duo. I mean, these guys were just going to be unstoppable. Now there's nothing to see here, shut up. In order to save, for Dan Bongino specifically, to save any of his career, because if he leaves the FBI, my guess would be he's going to take a leave of absence of some time, kind of get his head right, and then go back to doing his podcast. In order to save his reputation, he needs to step down in protest of what's happening. And then 2, if he goes back to the show and everyone doesn't want to see him as a liar, or someone that's withholding information, he needs to start spilling the tea when he comes back to do his show. That's the only saving grace for him. Kash Patel saying he's not going to take any action and he's not going to do anything and he's not going to resign, and I'm with Trump and I'm rolling with this, is now complicit in this entire situation. And for the people that are at Turning Point and their Turning Point USA that's happening right now, and they're talking about this, they keep blaming Pam Bondi. They keep saying this is Pam Bondi that's created this whole thing. Pam Bondi that is hiding all of this information, and she's the one that needs to be fired. I agree with that. But Trump's the captain of the ship. If I'm Trump and I'm sitting in the Oval Office at my desk, and you and Kash Patel come to me and tell me, we've gone through everything. We can't find a thing. There's nothing useful here for anyone. I'm saying this is fucking bullshit. So, do I need to fire you and find someone that can do this job? or are you going to go get me the information because I know there's information? That's what I'm saying if I'm sitting at that desk. And if I'm not sitting at that desk and saying that, what the fuck am I doing? What am I agreeing to here, or what am I allowing to happen? Now, some people have said, Alex Jones and others, when they're talking about this, that there are too strong of people on this, right? There was some information that the Saudi royal family could be involved. The former prime minister of Israel could have been involved in hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein. There's, of course, rich elites and Bill Gates and others that are involved in this. So the discussion is it's a too big to fail situation, which means that it could affect the economy or relations with other countries. It could bring them all crashing down, so much so that it would have a hugely negative worldwide scale to it. And let's just entertain for a minute that could be true. My response is I don't give a fuck. And I think most of the information, yeah, there you go, look at the damn videos, right. I think most Americans feel that way too. I don't give a fuck if it affects relations with Saudi Arabia. I don't give a fuck if it, because Prince Philip was involved, right? No, Prince Andrew. This guy was in a picture with just Ghislaine Maxwell. With the girl who ended up getting cancer and then allegedly committed suicide, and obviously people don't believe that. She was one of the ones that was alleged to have been trafficked. So you've got members of the royal family in England, potentially members of the royal family in Saudi Arabia. You have rich elitists here in the United States. I don't give a fuck if they get brought down. By not going after this situation, you have given everyone that does this a rubber stamp to keep moving forward with their actions. That means your kids aren't safe. My kids aren't safe. I don't know about anybody else. I've got a huge fucking problem with that. So it really offends me when Trump says, why are we still talking about this? We've already given you everything we can. It's over. Let's move on to something else. There are important things that are going on. The people that are suffering in the floods in Texas and the children that have been lost and the people that have lost their lives and homes, that is very important. Also, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. I want the fucking information. And the people aren't going to let it go. I'm not going to let it go. Benny Johnson is still going. He's not going to let it go. Viva Frey is still going. He's not going to let it go. You got grifters like Ben Shapiro. He's already accepted this entire line, hook, line, and sinker. He bought it. But this is coming from the guy who bought the COVID vaccine. As soon as they said, go get it because it's magical and it's going to save your life, that fucking guy and his wife were in line. This is supposed to be a Harvard and Yale graduate. They're supposed to be way smarter than you and I. This idiot got in line to get it right away for their whole family. And it took him a year later for him to figure out what the rest of us already knew. That it's unsafe and it doesn't work. So you at this point in time, with the split that's happening, there's one thing I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt. You can see who the lying grifters are that are trying to bullshit and shove this new narrative down your throat. And there's those of us who are real and continue to ask questions and continue to say, we're not letting this go. No, I don't accept this answer from the Trump administration. This is bullshit. I have a mind of my own. I can question what's happening here. I want to show you a little bit of... This was Asmund Gold's video, and he's been covering... he's been looking at something of what CoffeeZilla's been doing. I'd encourage you to go check out CoffeeZilla as well. CoffeeZilla is the one that exposed the Hawk 2 girl. Remember that chick that was interviewed, and she said, you Hawk 2 on that thing. And then she started the bullshit Hawk 2 coin. And then he exposed that they were ripping people off that were buying the coin. He's a smart guy. Now he's been going over all of this. It goes for 20 minutes. I'm not going to do the whole thing. I'm just going to give you some snippets here and let you check this out.
There's a new one. It's a new day. Here we go.
The President of the United States is trying to cover the Epstein story. It's the double down right here on Truth Social.
Jesus.
A big post
That's a
saying
twit
that actually
longer.
it's the Democrats who wrote the Epstein files. This is just after Elon Musk, who worked with Trump for many months, said that Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That's the real reason they have not been made public. Obviously, we've already seen deflections from the president about Epstein, saying that it's a disgrace to talk about him.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? It just seems like a desecration.
But today,
That fucking drove me. I don't know about the rest of you. That got my blood boiling. That drove me nuts. I have never been that upset with the president over anything at all. And that just drove me fucking nuts. Why are we still talking about this? Who wants to know about it? We want to fucking know about it. What are you talking about?
Quick context. There's been a lot of infighting in the Republican Party over basically who's at fault for the giant botch of the Epstein file.
I'm gonna be real. I don't think there's any infighting at all. I think if people are pretty unanimously against this. There's not a lot of infighting.
With the majority of Republicans not wanting to believe that Trump himself was against a full release, but rather that he was sort of tricked into not releasing the Epstein files by one of his lackeys. But today, Donald Trump came out and basically...
I don't see how that's better. Oh, no. No, he's not bad. He's just retarded. Oh!
Look at this. He put this on Truth Social. President Trump. What's going on with my boys and in some cases gals? They're all going after Attorney General Pam Bondi, who is doing a fantastic job. No, she's not. She's lying to us about Epstein. We're on one team. That's MAGA. Excuse me. And I don't like what's happening. We have a perfect administration. The talk of the world. It's not perfect. Not as of this point. You cannot say it's perfect anymore. The talk of the world, and selfish people are trying to hurt it. We're selfish. All over a guy who never dies, Jeffrey Epstein, for years. It's Epstein over and over again. Why are we giving publicity to files written by Obama, crooked Hillary, Comey, Brennan, and the losers and criminals of the Biden administration? So now, the Democrats are the ones that made the Epstein files. What? I hate the Democrats and the left, and even I don't fucking believe this shit. Obama, Hillary, whose husband was hanging out at Epstein Island, so much so that in one of Epstein's office in New York, the notorious picture on the wall of Bill Clinton wearing Monica Lewinsky's cum-stained dress. He's wearing that in a picture in Epstein's multi-level, expensive mansion in high-rise condo in New York. He's got a picture of Clinton wearing Monica Lewinsky's dress from that event. I did not have sexual relations with that woman. We all remember that. He's got a picture of Bill Clinton in his home in New York. But Hillary's the one that came up with the Epstein pedophile. Why would the pedophiles that are involved provide information about the list and the people who are on it? They would do the exact opposite. They would try to distance themselves as much as humanly possible. Once again, he's going off the rails with this statement that the Democrats made this up. I'm not a Democratic supporter in any way, shape, or form, folks. But even I don't believe this.
He backed Pam Bondi, saying they're all going after Pam Bondi, who's doing a fantastic job all over a guy who never dies, Jeffrey Epstein. For years, it's Epstein over and over again. Why are we giving publicity to files written by Democrats who conned the world with the Russia hoax? They created the Epstein files just like they created the fake Hillary Clinton.
Why are we giving publicity? Well, focus on the we there. You've been the one saying this. You've been gassing this up forever. He talking about this 10 years ago.
Steele dossier. Now, this is such a smokescreen and a deflection.
It's not even a smokescreen. It's like one of those like really, really like fucking off-brand like scuffed smoke bombs that like barely works, and then like someone's like trying to run away from behind it, but you can like very clearly see it's just like them running away. It's not even a smokescreen. It's just nothing. It's transparent. It's a sparkler.
A left versus right issue. Epstein never has been. It's the people versus the predators, not left versus right. The people versus the pedophiles, the people versus the people on planes.
It's crazy that people have actually tried to turn this into a partisan issue. This is not a partisan issue at all. It has nothing to do with partisan politics. Everybody, I think that this is it's ironic because actually, you know, Trump said he was going to, you know, try to like unite the country. I think he did. Promises made, promises kept. Everybody is united against this.
Left versus right here. In fact, some of the people who want this the most are people on the right, even on Truth Social.
Of course.
Obviously a hugely Trump-favored place. Everybody is saying, no, this is unacceptable. You have to release the files. Later in the post, Trump also says that these are radical left-inspired documents and to not waste time and energy on Jeffrey Epstein, somebody that nobody cares about. But actually, we all do care about it. You know who doesn't actually want this out? The elites. That's why they've never done it. That's why it was a compelling pitch when Donald Trump hinted to his base that maybe he was going to release the files. People largely didn't trust the job that Biden had done. That's why
he appointed people who explicitly said they would release the files.
Yeah, and I played that video for you.
Let's not pussyfoot around with this at all. He 100% gassed this up as much as he could.
Compelling stories. So the idea now that it would...
Don't you think Trump was on the list? Democrats would have used it during the election? I've said this 50 times, so I don't want to repeat it. I think there's a third party that has the full unredacted list, and the reason why they're not using it on each other is because it would be mutually assured destruction, and if part of the list gets...
And I agree about some of this, the mutually assured destruction. You notice that the Democrats are not really fighting hard for this to be released, right? If they really wanted to stick it to Trump, they could just put their foot on the gas all the way to push for the Epstein information to be released. On the other side, the Republicans could do the exact same thing. It's odd that both parties, I know some people have come out with it. I know some on a little bit here and a little bit there have said, release Epstein files, release Epstein files. For the most part, you are not getting an overwhelming approach from either side over this. One of the things that both sides love to do is attack the other one when they find a chink in the armor, when they find where they tripped up, right? January 6th for the Democrats was like, Christmas all wrapped up in a pretty little bow. They were able to take that and run that horse into the ground, beat the horse to death, and then drag it around the town square for months and years. They never let an opportunity and bad situation go to waste. Now, I don't see any of the Democrats pushing for the Epstein list to get released. And to be on the other side of that, I don't see a lot of Republicans pushing for this either. It's very odd when both sides are uncomfortable about talking about one situation. Everyone came together, I think, almost pretty much unanimously to release the JFK files. Right? There are things they come together with and vote 100%. There's no argument between either side. And they're very simple, and it's a win for both parties. So they're always on the same side of that. If you'll really take a look at this, not leftist or right content creators, the actual politicians, no one on either side is pushing for this to come out. No one is pushing for this in any real sense to be fixed. That right there says a lot all by itself. That they're not saying anything.
It's leaked and it is redacted, then that third party will release the full list and it will damage both of them. That's what I think is happening.
Biden and Obama, who invented the Epstein files, is absolutely preposterous. They don't want that out either. And maybe that's because, as a producer of 60 Minutes alleged, Ghislaine Maxwell implied that there were tapes on Trump and also tapes on Clinton. You know who else said it? Mark Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein's brother, saying Epstein said, what I know about both candidates, the 2016 election would have to be canceled. So this whole idea...
That's crazy that all of these people know all of these...
Now, you can decide for yourself if you trust Jeffrey Epstein's brother. That's what he said when he's been interviewed. Some of the things he said. You have to decide how much you trust that guy. How close they were, how much time he spent with his brother, and what he has to say about him. It's one of those situations where you have to take with a grain of salt.
all of these names, but nobody actually gets named and no evidence actually manifests because of some abstraction of law that we like. If there's one thing that the Iraq War taught me, it's that every single law has an exception. You can't torture people. Well, but you can't go and just invade a country for but why is it that we have all of this Patriot Act stuff, and the one time that we need to use it for a good reason, it won't happen? I'm a little bit annoyed by that.
That this is a left or right thing. It's not. It's the elites. Anybody who was on that plane, anybody who was associated with Epstein, seen with Epstein, even if they did nothing wrong, they don't want that out. Everyone who wasn't seen with Epstein, wasn't on that plane, of course they all want the files.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is obviously the Trump administration has sort of played footsie with this idea for a long time.
They haven't played footsie with it.
That was the people. So for anyone that's unfamiliar, that's DC Drano. I forget these other ones here. That's them getting their binders. This was supposed to be phase one, given to them by Pam Bondi herself while they were at the White House, of the release of all of the Epstein info. This was supposed to be the first part of the bombshell that was all in these binders. So they were told they had to wait until a certain amount of time in order to start talking about it on their shows. A lot of these people have like over 1 million followers. They had to wait for like in a release day to do it. It was like 2 days or something like that. And then they could start talking about everything that was in that binder. And then when they went through it and they went into the binder, it was essentially a nothing burger. Everything that has already been kind of snuck out to the general public, everything that we pretty much already knew was the shit that was in these. So it was like another gaslight.
Bro, this was their shoes. They were running on this idea, literally. This was something that they put out there.
Base, they know this is a big issue. They had the influencers stand out there with a bunch of released material. But we also showed clips of Donald Trump implying that maybe Bill Clinton and Prince Andrew were doing bad things on the island.
Bill Clinton.
Got a lot of problems coming up, in my opinion, with the famous island. That island was...
We need to get an apology to old Bill Clinton. Donald Trump dragging his name through the mud over nothing. Making up some bullshit about how Bill Clinton, our president, who had a surplus of the budget, how could somebody say that about innocent Bill Clinton? What the fuck, man? His pure name has now been sullied. Exactly. This is outrageous. He owes Bill Clinton an apology.
Really a cesspool. There's no question about it. Just ask Prince Andrew.
So consistently, Trump has hinted that maybe these guys were involved with Epstein. Maybe it was bad. But turns out all these guys knew each other and knew Epstein. We know this in part from a Piers Morgan.
Oh, wow. How fucking convenient.
An interview where he talks to a lady who went to a dinner party with Trump, Clinton, Epstein, and Prince Andrew.
Totally. Well, wait a minute. So can't they just find that out? I mean, there's got to be itinerary for this. Why is there never any... Like, I feel like if you're even if you're a retard, you could figure this out. When was this? Where was this? Where was the restaurant? Who was there? Is there a guest book? When would it happen? Does the group have a guest book? Does anybody remember there? Who did you have on staff that day? You can find all of these things out. But isn't it weird that none of these things are being investigated at all?
You know what's interesting? There was a butler that worked on the island, and he had kept a list of the people that showed up. And he ended up he had a book of his own, he was writing people's names down or whatever, or a guest book like Asmund Gold is talking about. And the butler tried to sell that book, that list. The FBI ended up arresting the butler and seizing the book, rather than letting him sell it. Why would it be illegal for him to sell that list? If I had a list and wrote down people in my town that I saw doing illegal things or doing bad things, and I kept some notes to myself, and I wrote it down in a book. Why would it be illegal for me to do that? The people could argue after the fact that I was defaming their name and saying bad things about them, that they wanted to fight me on it. But it's my right to take the notes of what I see and who it was that was involved in it and leave myself a note for a future reference. And then if somebody else wanted to see that because they were curious about it, why would it be illegal for me to show it? But this butler was arrested for trying to sell that information. Just by the by.
Nothing's happening? That's so crazy. A collection of very high-powered people. How did they all interact with Epstein? How did Trump, Clinton, and Prince Andrew interact with him?
Everyone was very, very pally with him.
Wow.
You know, it was like there was close bonds. You could see that.
So these guys knew each other, apparently had dinner parties together, all of them together.
Dinner.
Trump later accuses two of the guys of doing bad things, and then when we release the file...
So let me guess. You're at a table, and one guy is convicted as like a fucking creep. The other two guys you say are creeps, but guys, no, I didn't know it. Look, bro, like that shit was. I didn't know any of this. Wow, bro, like that. No, I didn't do that. It's not me.
Can we release the files? Well, no, actually, no, we can't do that. Nobody cares about that. The reason why seems obvious. Epstein knew Prince Andrew. Yes, he knew Bill Clinton. Yes. But he also knew Donald Trump. And recently, tapes were released of Epstein talking and calling Donald Trump his closest friend.
So how do you know this?
So it makes intuitive sense to distance yourself from files that may or may not have your name in it, and even distance yourself from the people involved. It's worth stating Trump actually denied knowing Prince Andrew.
So Epstein's files are a smoking gun because they don't want people to pay attention to Diddy's trial or Diddy's files. I'm sorry to say, but I don't really give a fuck what a bunch of like weird, creepy, like pedo actor say this.
Showing that they clearly knew each other.
So Trump says he doesn't know Prince Andrew. There's Prince Andrew. Right now, you know what? You go to events, you go to a party, you take a picture with somebody else. It happens, right? You're like, oh, hey, you're a prince from England. That'd be cool to get a photo with you, right? It can be nonchalant. It's not impossible, but to say I don't know the guy, and then you're in a picture with the guy, it offsets everything that you're trying to say. Even if there's a logical explanation for it, it offsets everything that you're trying to say.
Other as of 2000. Now, the reason you would deny knowing Prince Andrew, even though you did, is obvious. At the time, he was facing allegations related to Epstein.
He doesn't know.
By the way, allegations that now are basically over. Prince Andrew is very happy about us dropping the Epstein probe. A source for The Sun said he's only been abroad once since the scandal erupted. Prince Andrew has always been very nervous about going abroad and always looking over his shoulder, as he should be, in my opinion. But now he's very happy because the guy who never met him but was photographed with him in 2000 just ended the investigation. Now, I have to say, Trump's been pretty consistent on the fact he has no interest in releasing the Epstein files in full. He said this multiple times. The reason most people have sort of a false memory of this, the reason it's sort of a Mandela effect that he campaigned on the idea of releasing the Epstein files, is because Fox News released a deceptively edited clip.
I don't think that's the reason. I see what he's saying, but I disagree with it. I think the reason why is because he filled his cabinet with people that explicitly said that they would release it entirely. And I think that the people that you run with as like saying this person is going to be my cabinet member for X, Y, or Z thing, and really it's X, Y, and Z thing in this circumstance, like Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, all three of them, and Elon Musk, like all of these people, even if he didn't explicitly say it, every single other person that was on his team that he was co-signing their statements and then sponsoring them to be part of his leadership team all said it.
Where they cut out the part
where
even
J.D. Vance in that interview with Theo Vaughn said release the list. Even he said it. That's the vice president.
said, yeah, I'll probably release the Epstein files. And they cut out the part where then he backtracks on that completely.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
And that's the part most of us saw. Of course, later, people found out that the full clip showed him saying basically the opposite.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole...
Is there a lot of phony stuff? A whole bunch of people are hanging out with a major pedophile. And the response is, it's a lot of phony stuff. Let me ask everybody something here for a minute. Let's say you had a friend, and he hung out in a whole bunch of pedophile groups, right? He liked all that stuff. He hung out with a whole bunch of pedophiles, either alleged or proven as a fact. Would you be comfortable continuing to hang out? Now, let's say also for this scenario that your friend doesn't do any of that at all. But for whatever reason, he likes these people and he's friends with them. But your friend doesn't do anything. Proven fact, he doesn't do anything. Are you comfortable still hanging out with this friend and having him in your circle of friends and interacting with him in your life? So, ask yourself that question, and I think I know the obvious answer. No, you would want nothing to do with this person because he's got extremely bad judgment and you don't want anything to do with that. So you distance yourself from it because you don't want it affecting you and your family. So when he says there's a lot of phony stuff here, this is another bad statement by the president. There's a lot of phony stuff about people that are in that because he's part of it too. He was hanging out with the guy. And he could be that guy in the scenario I just gave you that has absolutely nothing to do with it whatsoever. But you become, in situations like that, guilty by association. It's a black mark on you. If you're friends with a whole bunch of drug dealers but have never done a drug in your life, people are still going to look at you and go, I don't understand why you hang out with those people. It boggles my mind. I'm boggled. Right? And then they go, you know what? I really don't think Matt's a bad guy. But at the same time, he keeps hanging out with drug dealers and it bothers me on a personal level. I don't want anything to do with him. Even though I haven't done anything wrong aside from my association with those people. So him saying is there's a lot of phony stuff as far as the people that are interacting with him, and maybe he's talking about the guy's association with Mossad, and it looks like he very likely could have been involved with Mossad. And again, as it's been said, wittingly or unwittingly. So they were using him as an occasional asset based on the people that he was schmoozing with. Or he was openly working with them and was like, yeah, whatever I can do as long as I get political protection. Either one has a possibility to be true, but they're trying to shut that narrative down too.
Whole world.
We also have Bill O'Reilly.
That answer isn't even a bad answer. It's only a bad answer when you contextualize it with nothing got released, period.
I mean, I disagree with Asman. I think it was a bad answer.
Stuff that negatively affects people. Like, obviously, sure. Like, I mean, that's a reasonable, prudent thing to say. But the problem is the way that it was looked at, right? It's a terrible answer now. In retrospect, it's very bad.
On News Nation saying he just talked to Trump back on St. Patrick's Day, and Trump basically said the same thing.
He said, and I agree, there are a lot of names associated with Epstein that had nothing to do with Epstein's conduct. They maybe had lunch with him or maybe had some correspondence for one thing or another. If that name gets out, those people are destroyed. Because there's not going to be any context. Media doesn't care about...
Too bad. Yeah. That sucks. Also, by the way, this is immediately disproven by Donald Trump. Donald Trump won the presidency, and Jeffrey Epstein said Donald Trump was his best friend. So it's not even true to begin with. It's bullshit.
Context. So you can't do that.
So over and over, we've seen the same answer from the president. Not the fact that, oh no, the Epstein files, it's a lefty conspiracy. No, actually, it's the worry that people in the files are going to have their lives destroyed by the files. That sounds a lot more like covering for the people in the files than it does covering the victims. We've heard.
Correct.
That's a very actually that's a really good point. I never thought about it from that perspective, but I think when you think about it that way, yeah, he's totally right about that. Yeah, he's absolutely like, yeah, he's going in and he's covering for them particularly. Exactly.
Patel and Pam Bondi talk about, we gotta protect the victims.
Go through it very cautiously to protect all the victims.
We're not going to re-victimize women. We're not going to put that back out there.
But when we actually hear the president talk about it, and the real reason,
but
right,
what it appears that they don't want to do is re-victimize the pedophiles that are involved in all this, that are, sitting in their $1 million mansions, wringing their hands and hoping that somebody will put a speed bump in front of this whole investigation and not allow it to come through, so they can go back to living their best lives the way that they want to do it, and it's at the expense of women and children.
Because he's ultimately the decision maker on whether this gets released. What the real reason is cited is not about victims.
And also, this is another thing, is that nobody can really, Pam Bondi, I think, is a retard for other reasons. But nobody, Trump is the one making these calls. She's not making the calls. He says jump, she says how high. It's not her, it's him.
It is about the people, the names in the thing. So I find it disgusting. They're using the victims of Epstein as a shield for the people who are actually in these files. Now, of course, who specifically is he worried about? Well, maybe it's his friends, maybe it's people he has dinner parties with, and of course, maybe it's him, Donald Trump, that he's worried about. The journalist Michael Wolff actually quotes Steve Bannon as saying Jeffrey Epstein was really feared in 2016 for what he knew.
I was there, and it was that moment, and Bannon said to Epstein, and he said this in a good humor. He said during the campaign, it would be the 2016 campaign, you, meaning Jeffrey Epstein, were the only person I was afraid of.
So that is 3 independent sources. You've got the
Why would Steve Bannon say that? Why would he say that? Isn't that weird? What's going on about that?
A Rosen quote, the Michael Wolff quote, and that Mark Epstein quote, all saying that there is some type of damaging information on Trump. 2 of those people specifically implying that it's also on Clinton as well. You also have the Elon Musk allegation from left.
I think that if Trump is implicated, Bill Clinton is probably also implicated. I would say the probability of that's 80-90%. That's a pretty high probability situation there. You know what I mean? Pretty high one. Yeah, definitely. And Hillary? Yeah, and why didn't she ever get put in jail? This is what always made me mad about Trump whenever he was first president. You said you were going to put Hillary Clinton in jail, and you didn't put her in jail. Why didn't you do that?
That's a good point.
The fuck? What happened to Walker?
I mean, they've had no problem going after Trump, right? When he was running for office, they were doing everything they possibly could to put him in jail, get him disqualified from being able to run for office. They did everything that they possibly could to put him in jail. And in his first term, he said, I'm going to set up a special prosecutor to look into everything that Hillary has done, and because she's done some bad things, and she really has. She's another one. Her and her husband are both elitist scumbags that have done horrible things, and they've gotten away with it. But he said he was going to set up a special prosecutor and go after them, and haven't done it. And there's been no arrests for everything that's happening right now, including the people that are involved in all of this.
Her up or make a wall. Well, he made part of the wall at least, right? Hillary didn't get anything.
Field, but he doesn't source anybody, so we won't count that. Either way, I must say, I don't know for sure if Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, Donald Trump were heavily involved in anything nefarious or not. That is exactly why we should
Well, one thing we do know for sure is that they were all heavily involved with Jeffrey Epstein. That's one thing that we do know. So it's really, really close
demand that we open these files. But the possibility of both Democrats and Republicans being implicated in some of these files, whether they did it or not, or just knew him, may give a plausible reason for why the Epstein files have been heavily redacted this whole time. There are very powerful people involved. We've known that. The reason we've been given, of course, is that, we've got to protect the victims. The real reason behind this
bullshit.
Yeah, you've already been told. It's not to protect the victims. It's to protect the upper echelon shitbags who are all involved in this. And I'm gonna finish with this because there's one more kind of breaking news thing that I want to put out there. But I'm gonna finish with this. I'm MAGA, but I'm from the perspective of country first. And that is not, that one man or one woman, whoever is in office and whoever is in charge, is not larger than that. I've been an ardent Trump supporter because he pushed, for the most part, all of the ideology that I agreed with and I wanted to see in place. I wanted illegals put out of the country because if we can't break the rules, why can they? If we have to be inundated with taxes and fees and all of this bullshit, but they can end up with our money and a free credit card and an EBT card and anything else, and we're the ones that get screwed, that's not fair to anybody. I have a problem with that. If we're going to focus inwardly on helping this country and not so much on helping out the rest of the world, I'm also on board with that. Which is not happening now as well. Now we can't make any headway with Russia and Ukraine. So now we're going to send more weapons and technology to Ukraine. When I've said from the very beginning, I want nothing to do with Ukraine. Let them and Russia figure it out. And whoever loses and whoever wins, that's their business. Even with Israel and Palestine, I have been a supporter of Israel using its right to defend itself. Not for us to do all the heavy lifting. If you want to go after Hamas, Hezbollah, Gaza, and whatever the fuck else you want to do, that's your area and your zone. Go do you. It's got nothing to do with us. And now we're even more involved over there with the bombings with Iran. And not to put myself as a hypocrite, I supported the bombings in Iran because I have a concern with a terroristic regime-run country getting their hands on nuclear weapons. And how they'll move them, how they'll turn it into a missile, how they'll turn it into a more portable explosive device, and how they'll move that around the world. So an argument can be made that that is in America's best interest because the terrorist hotspot for them to hit is the great Satan. That's America. It's bringing it here. So it's in our interest to go after terrorists. So for the most part, again, does Iran have much to do with us? Not really, other than keep saying death to America and how if they get the opportunity, they'd love to act on that. I mean, there's that. But, them saying, Russia is not saying I'm going to nuke America. Right? They have nukes. North Korea has nukes. They're not saying, get ready, America, you've got incoming fire. They're not saying that. They all know better. We've got them, they've got them. They know how far to take that game. And they threatened it when they were getting angry. They were like, we're getting closer and closer to nuclear action or something like that. But they've never come out and say, hey, by the way, it's our goal to nuke the United States. Iran pretty much comes out and says that when they're working on all this. Death to Israel and death to the United States. So if they get this, based on that rhetoric and their action, their intention would be to use it against all of those entities in the best way possible. So I can look at that and go, you know what? It's not necessarily America first in bombing Iran, but it's also not America last either. We do have a dog in that fight. It's not completely moot. But when Trump takes these actions that seems to be against the American people and against things that are important to us, I'm not going to stand by and say nothing and go, well, I'm a supporter, so I guess whatever you say is what it is. No, it's not. I don't agree with this. I've got a problem with it. I think what's happening here is wrong. And I'm not going to stop talking about it. I'm glad other people aren't going to stop talking about it. We still demand the information, and this isn't over. And, with President Trump, whatever it is that's happening behind the scenes that I'm not privy to, shame on you for this. I never thought I'd have to say that. But I'll finish with one final thing here that's very interesting and probably will not happen. Since that time, Ghislaine Maxwell has come out and said she is really ready to go before Congress and tell the truth about everything that's happened. Jeffrey Epstein's former girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, is ready to testify before the U.S. Congress about the Epstein files, UK news outlet Daily Mail reported, citing sources. The Daily Mail reported that Maxwell, who was serving a 20-year sentence for child sex trafficking, but apparently only to Epstein, so she got 20 years for helping one guy do it, is more than happy to sit before Congress and tell her story. However, the U.S. government has never asked her to disclose what she knows. You want to fucking... You know how I know this is never going to happen? Can you imagine what the fuck is going to be said if she gets free range to sit there and talk about everything and go, that dude, third row back to the left, fucking had a Mai Tai with you, motherfucker. You over there, yeah, I remember you. You remember we were at the island and we were in the pool? And there was like 5 other kids? Yeah, motherfucker. I remember your face. You remember how that shit's gonna go down? Maxwell is also seeking to appeal her conviction in the U.S. Supreme Court on July 14th. Lawyers for the U.S. government will submit their response to her plea for the Supreme Court to take up her case. Maxwell was convicted in 2022 over her role in a scheme to help Epstein sexually exploit and abuse multiple underage girls over the course of a decade, but only to himself, according to the Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, and the Trump administration. The source further added that while Trump was seen with Epstein in public and social events, he was also one of the first to cut ties with him, reportedly due to a business dispute and Epstein's treatment of women. There are no big shocks about President Trump and the Epstein files, but there are a lot of powerful men involved and a lot of money, and it will come down to following the money it added. Now, I'm willing to believe that. I'm willing to believe that Trump had an association with him, and then he cut ties with him because of bad business deals, and he was starting to see more and more what this dude was about. But you can't prove that with your current course of action. The decisions you're making tend to point in a completely different direction. And even if it's not true, it's still a really bad look that you can't fully explain to everybody. Now, do I want to see Ghislaine Maxwell go in front of fucking Congress? 100% absolutely make this fucking happen. I want her to go there, I want her to answer questions, and I want her to start pointing fingers at motherfuckers. Is it going to happen? No. I'm actually shocked that she's even still alive. But it's not going to happen. But I'm going to say it right now to be on the record. I want Ghislaine Maxwell to appear before Congress and tell this whole story. Tell the whole deal, who's been there, who's been involved, who they are, names and faces, and tell not just the people of America, but the people of the world what the deal is. All right? That's the Shitbag Roundup, and I never thought I'd say it, but the Shitbag Roundup for this week is currently the Trump administration. I never thought I'd see the day. Trump, Bongino, Kash Patel, and Pam Bondi currently. And for this particular situation, all a bunch of shitbags. And I would love for you to give me a reason to take this back. And to do the right thing in this situation. For whatever the reasons are that we're not getting the real deal, I would love to see the real deal happen. Many people would. And the political implications of this are, one, the midterms. This is going to be a talking point in the midterms, and people are not going to be happy, and they're going to vote how they feel. And then when it comes to pushing someone to run for president of the United States, now if he pushes J.D. Vance, if J.D. doesn't come out and say some shit about this too, maybe I don't want J.D., maybe I want someone else. Maybe I don't care who Trump endorses for president. Maybe I'm going to decide I'm going to look at another candidate, and that's the way I'm going to vote. But politically, this is a shitstorm. It's just not a nothing burger. You can't just say we're done talking about it, it's over, we're all moving on to other subjects. This is a political shitstorm, and it is going to affect the midterms, and it is going to affect who is endorsed to potentially run for the next president of the United States. Because people are going to go, wait a minute, you were endorsed by Trump? The guy that lied to us about Epstein? Yeah, I'll bear you in mind. Thanks for coming by. Be honest. I voted for Trump. He's doing a lot of the things that I want right now in office with the illegals and other things that are good for the country. And I'm happy about that. But I'm not happy about that. I'm not happy. And he's going to finish his term. He was voted in by the people. He's going to finish his term. He can't run for another one. He's going to endorse someone else when he's done. And the people are going to have to decide how they feel about his endorsement if you factor in this situation into your math equation. All right? That's the Shitbag Roundup. And, of course, I'll be doing, there's information that's coming out every day. It's all crazy. I'll have more information for you as the week goes on, and I'll be putting on smaller segments and letting everybody know. YouTube, Rumble, and on TikTok as well. All right? Thanks, everyone, and try to have a good week.